All right, let's kick off another deep dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at the early life and career of Bill Gates.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's based on that review you sent over of his autobiography, Source Code, My Beginnings. And you know what's really cool?
What's that?
It's available as an audiobook, and it's narrated by, get this, Bill Gates himself and Wil Wheaton.
Oh, wow. Now that's a combo I wouldn't have expected.
Right. I'm super curious about that. So basically, we've got this fascinating glimpse into the mind of a tech giant. Let's dive in.
Sounds good.
So, from what I gathered from the review, it seems like the book really digs into Gates' childhood. Like, it emphasizes how his upbringing played a huge role in shaping his path.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really struck me about this book. It paints this picture of a household where intellectual curiosity and a good dose of healthy competition were just like part of the family DNA.
Okay, so I'm picturing family dinners that were less about passing the mashed potatoes and more about, I don't know, debating like different sorting algorithms or something.
You're not far off, honestly. His parents, a lawyer and a teacher, really instilled in him this love for problem solving and this drive to be the best. It makes you wonder if those early dinner table debates were like a training ground for all those boardroom battles he'd face later on.
Oh, totally. And speaking of training grounds, there's that awesome anecdote about Gates and Paul Allen, getting their hands on a teletype machine at Lakeside School.
Oh yeah, back in the 70s.
Yeah, way back then. That was their first real taste of computing power, wasn't it?
Exactly. It wasn't just about having access to the tech, though. It was about the freedom they had to explore, to experiment, to really push the limits of what that machine could do. I mean, it says so much about the importance of hands-on learning and good mentors, especially during those crucial years.
It really makes you think about how different things were back then. I mean, picture this. A bunch of teenagers huddled around a teletype machine, writing code in assembly language.
No fancy graphical interface.
Yep. No internet.
None of that. Just pure, raw problem-solving grit. It was a time when you actually had to understand the nuts and bolts of computing to get anything done. And that experience, it really shaped Gates's entire approach to software development. It wasn't just about making a program work. It was about understanding the whole system, inside and out.
Yeah, I can see that. So they go from these coding adventures and then boom, they found Microsoft.
With this audacious goal.
Right, a computer on every desk and in every home. Which back then, I mean, computers were these gigantic, expensive things mostly used by like businesses and universities. So this wasn't just a business plan, it was practically a revolution.
Absolutely. Imagine someone in the early days of cars saying, everyone will own a car someday.
Yeah.
That's the kind of ambition we're talking about here. And to get there, they knew they needed to make computers, well, easier for everyday folks to use.
Yeah.
And that's where MS-DOS comes in.
Now, MS-DOS, I mean, for anyone who hasn't had the pleasure of using it, it wasn't exactly user-friendly, typing in commands, navigating this text-based interface, but it was revolutionary in its own way, right?
It was. Despite all its complexities, MS-DOS played a crucial role in making computers mainstream. Remember, back then, software wasn't something you just bought off the shelf. Microsoft, they were smart. They made deals with all the big hardware manufacturers to get MS-DOS pre-installed on their machines. It was a strategic move, and you know what? It completely reshaped the whole PC industry.
It's kind of wild to think that even someone like Bill Gates, with his incredible vision, made some missteps early on. The review mentioned that he admits to some licensing oversights in the book, like decisions that probably cost Microsoft a ton of money in the long run.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that everyone makes mistakes, even the most brilliant minds, especially in a field as crazy and unpredictable as tech. Those early choices had a huge impact, though. They rippled through the whole industry and taught some valuable lessons about, the business side of innovation.
Yeah, for sure. And what I found interesting is that Gates doesn't seem to dwell on those setbacks. Like he frames them as learning experiences, which I think is pretty cool.
Nearly.
Okay, so you've got Microsoft, this tech empire in the making, but it wasn't all smooth sailing, right? I mean, think about the technical challenges back then. You mentioned assembly language before, and the hardware limitations must have been insane.
Oh, yeah. Imagine a world with no high-level programming languages,
Yeah.
no fancy debugging tools, and computers that had, like, a fraction of the processing power we have today. It was a completely different ballgame.
It must have taken so much ingenuity, so much persistence to overcome all that. I mean, I'm starting to understand why Gates is known for his problem-solving skills.
Absolutely. It was like they were exploring uncharted territory, constantly pushing the limits of what was possible. It's easy to forget how much things have changed since those early days.
It really is. It's crazy to think about how much the tech world has changed. We've gone from these clunky teletype machines to like super sleek smartphones, and a lot of that happened during Bill Gates' career.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting is how his focus shifted over time. Like early on, it was all about the software, building the best programs, making Microsoft this dominant force in the industry. But as he became more successful, he also became more aware of, like, the world's problems, the bigger issues.
Right, and the review actually mentions that the book kind of touches on the shift towards philanthropy. It hints at the whole Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation thing. It's like he conquered the digital world and then decided, okay, now what? Time to tackle global issues.
Yeah, it's almost as if his whole drive to solve problems just needed a new outlet. He built this amazing company, had all this wealth, and then it's like he asked himself, what's next? And for Bill Gates, the answer wasn't just like kicking back and enjoying his success. It was about using what he had to actually make a difference in the world.
Which is pretty incredible. But it makes you wonder, though, what was going on like beneath the surface during all that. Because the review also pointed out that the book doesn't really go deep into his personal struggles, like any internal conflicts or anything like that.
Yeah, that's something you see a lot with autobiographies. It's often a very well-polished version of events. You know what I mean? Like you're looking through a window, but you can't quite see everything that's happening inside. But even with that, there's still a lot we can learn from how Gates reflects on his experiences.
Totally. And speaking of reflections, let's go back to the audiobook for a sec.
Mhm.
The fact that it's narrated by both Bill Gates and Wil Wheaton, that seems like a huge highlight. It's not your typical audiobook, right?
No, not at all. It's like they intentionally played with this contrast between their personalities, their speaking styles. You have Bill Gates, who's, known for being analytical, maybe a bit dry in his delivery, and he's narrating the more personal stories, the anecdotes.
So you get that really authentic firsthand account straight from the source.
Yeah.
But then,
Then Wil Wheaton comes in, and he's got this much more, dynamic and engaging style. And he handles the historical stuff, the technical parts. It's like he brings those moments to life, adds a layer of excitement and context that you wouldn't get otherwise.
okay, so can you give me an example? Like, how does that actually play out in the audiobook?
Okay, so picture this. Gates is describing the moment he and Paul Allen first saw their basic interpreter running on a computer. You can almost hear, like, the quiet satisfaction in his voice, the sense of accomplishment, but it's very understated. Then Wheaton takes over, and he's describing the technical challenges they had to overcome, the significance of that breakthrough for the future of computing. And his voice is probably filled with this awe and excitement. It's like he's painting this vivid picture for the listener.
Oh, wow. Okay, I get it. You can really feel the difference in their approaches. It makes the whole listening experience so much more, dynamic than just having one narrator, just going on and on.
Right. It's not just a dry list of facts and figures. It's an actual experience that pulls you in, makes you feel like you're part of the journey.
And I bet Wil Wheaton's enthusiasm makes even the technical stuff a bit easier to digest. Because let's be real, descriptions of early software development, they could easily put someone to sleep.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But his ability to take that complex information and make it accessible, make it entertaining, it's honestly impressive. He's like a translator.
Yeah.
Taking all that technical jargon and turning it into something everyone can understand and hopefully appreciate.
I like that, a translator. That's a good way to put it. Now, the review did mention one little downside, though. No PDF supplement.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it seems like a missed opportunity to include some visuals, like diagrams or photos to go along with all those detailed descriptions of early code and interfaces.
I agree. It would be nice. Imagine reading a recipe without seeing a picture of the finished dish. You can imagine it, but actually seeing it makes it so much more impactful.
It's like they created this incredible meal for the mind, but forgot the garnish. But even without the visuals, it seems like the audiobook still does a great job of bringing those early days of computing to life.
It does. It really does. You get a real sense of the excitement, the challenges, the sheer ingenuity that went into making the technology we use every day.
So we've covered Gates's journey, from coding whiz kid to tech giant to philanthropist. And we talked about this unique audiobook experience. But how does it all tie together? What's the overarching takeaway here?
Well, what really stands out to me is that this story goes beyond just technology. It's about ambition. It's about innovation. It's about the power of problem solving.
Yeah.
Bill Gates, he saw a problem, a need, and he just went after solutions relentlessly. And that same drive, it took him from software to tackling things like poverty and disease.
It shows how the role of tech leaders has changed, doesn't it? They're not just building companies or gadgets anymore. It's about ethics, it's about using their influence to actually try to make the world a better place.
Yeah, it's like a reminder that technology, it's not just about bits and bytes. It's about people. It's about the planet.
Mm.
It's about using our creativity and intelligence to solve problems and build a better future.
And his story also highlights how important mentorship and early exposure to technology are, especially for young people. I mean, think about it. What if Gates and Allen had never found that teletype machine? Who knows where they'd be?
It makes you wonder how many potential innovators are out there just waiting for that chance, that opportunity to explore and create. It's a call to action for us. We need to invest in education, make sure everyone has access to technology, and support the next generation of problem solvers.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, before we wrap up our deep dive into Bill Gates' source code, let's circle back to that audiobook narration one last time. It sounds like the way Bill Gates and Wil Wheaton play off each other really makes for a special listening experience.
It's such a smart move. Having Gates narrate those personal stories, it adds this level of authenticity that you just wouldn't get otherwise. It's like you're getting a glimpse into his thoughts, hearing his reflections straight from him.
But then Wheaton comes in, and it's like he injects this energy, this excitement into the narrative.
Exactly. His delivery brings so much life to those historical and technical parts. You can practically picture him, like gesturing and getting animated as he describes those early days of Microsoft. It's really engaging.
It's almost like, I don't know, a comedy duo or something. You've got the straight man, Bill Gates, delivering the facts in his own way, and then you've got the funny guy, Wil Wheaton, adding commentary, bringing the whole story to life.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a comedy routine, but the contrast between their styles definitely makes it more entertaining. It's like Gates sets up the joke and then Wheaton delivers the punchline.
I can picture Gates describing some complicated coding problem in his monotone voice, and then Wheaton jumps in with this dramatic retelling, making it sound like some epic battle against the machine.
Huh. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. They each bring something unique to the audiobook, and the end result is this narrative that's both informative and really fun to listen to.
And it's amazing how Wheaton manages to make even the tech stuff sound exciting. It's like he's channeling the spirit of those early pioneers, the ones who were really pushing the limits of what was possible with computers.
It's like he's saying, hey, this stuff's actually cool. Let me show you why. And he does it in a way that makes you want to listen, even if you're not a tech expert.
Totally. So the review did mention there's no PDF supplement with the audiobook, right? No visual aids to go along with all the descriptions of code and interfaces. Do you think that's a big deal?
While some visuals would have been nice, I don't think it's a deal breaker. Gates is such a good storyteller, and his descriptions are so vivid that you can practically see everything in your mind. It's like he paints a picture with his words.
It speaks to his writing then. He manages to make all those technical details come alive, even without the visuals.
Definitely. It's like he's taking you back in time,
Yeah.
letting you experience those early days of computing through his eyes.
So would you say the audiobook is worth listening to?
Absolutely. Whether you're into tech, thinking about starting a business, or just curious about Bill Gates, this audiobook gives you a really unique look into his world. It's a story about ambition, about innovation, about the power of, human ingenuity to shape the future.
And it sounds like the way it's narrated really elevates the whole experience. It's more than just an audiobook. It's like a conversation, a journey. You're getting a glimpse behind the scenes of one of the most influential people in history.
It reminds us that even these tech giants, they all start somewhere. They all have their own source code. It's this mix of influences, experiences, decisions that shape who they become. And as tech keeps changing so rapidly, I think it's more important than ever to understand the people behind the code, the people driving innovation. And we can learn a lot from those who came before us.
So to our listener who sent in this review, I think it's safe to say, diving into source code, my beginnings is definitely worth it. It's not just a history lesson, it's inspiring too.
Yeah, it reminds us that even in a field as complicated and constantly evolving as tech, those core values, curiosity, problem solving, a willingness to push boundaries, those things are still essential. And who knows, maybe listening to this audiobook will spark an idea, ignite a passion, and lead to the next big thing.
Welcome back, everyone. We've been on this incredible journey with Bill Gates from his early coding days to becoming this global icon. But as we wrap up our deep dive into source code, my beginnings, I can't help but think, what does it all mean? Like for us today, dealing with our own crazy tech world.
Yeah, it's like we've been given this amazing blueprint, but the world's a totally different place now than it was back when personal computing was just starting out. Makes you wonder what parts of Gates' story are timeless and what parts are, well, kind of struck in the past.
Right. Like he talks a lot about this winner takes all mentality, especially in those early days of the software industry. It was all about dominating the market, making your operating system the standard, the one everyone had to use. But does that even apply today when there's so much collaboration, so much open source software out there?
It's an interesting question, for sure. I mean, on the one hand, the tech world is way more diverse and interconnected now than it ever was before. We've got tons of platforms, different operating systems, all these different approaches to making software. But on the other hand, you still see these huge tech companies fighting for control, you know? They want to control your data, how you experience technology, whole ecosystems even.
So maybe the game's changed, but that underlying drive for power, for market share, that's still there. It just looks different now.
I think you're right. The rules might be different, but those basic human motivations, things like ambition, wanting to win, wanting to create something that matters, those haven't gone away.
That's a good point. And we can't forget about Gates's whole transition from tech mogul to, philanthropist. It's like he reached the top in one world and then thought, okay, time to tackle something completely different.
It shows a certain way of thinking, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Being able to take a step back, see the bigger picture, and ask yourself, how can I use what I have to actually make a difference? Not everyone who achieves that level of success is willing to do that.
And it's funny how the review pointed out that the book doesn't really get into his personal struggles during that time. Like, we don't really know what he was feeling, what doubts he might have had.
Yeah, a lot of autobiographies are like that, especially when they're written by people who are still, actively building their legacy. There's a certain amount of, I don't know, control over what gets shared, how they want to be seen by the world.
But even without all the personal stuff, there's still a lot to be inspired by. I mean, it shows that you can be super successful in one field and then use that success to do something meaningful in a completely different area.
Absolutely. It reminds us that our paths aren't set in stone, that we can change, learn new things, and use our skills in new ways. Who knows? Maybe our listener will hear this and be inspired to tackle some huge problem.
That would be awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into source code, my beginnings. It's been a wild ride, from those early days of computers to the rise of a tech giant and the evolution of a global philanthropist.
We've learned so much about, how those early influences shape who we become, how important mentors are, and how important it is to keep searching for solutions, to never give up. We've talked about how the tech world is constantly changing and how the role of tech leaders is evolving too. And ultimately, I think it's a reminder that even these huge tech figures, they all start somewhere. They all have that initial spark of curiosity, that desire to make their mark on the world.
So, as you continue exploring the world of technology and innovation, remember Bill Gates' story. Remember that ambition, creativity, and a willingness to challenge the way things are done can lead to incredible things.
And hey, who knows? Maybe you'll be the one writing the next chapter in this ever-evolving story of tech and how it shapes our lives. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring.